All right, good morning, everybody. Before I get started, I want to thank personally the Well people for coming out and supporting me. And then also, I can't forget everybody here that has supported me throughout the 3 or 4 years that I've been here. You guys have never left my side, and I really want to make sure you guys are appreciated in that. This is a story that is not easy to tell or easy to hear, and so it's not going to start well, but it's going to end well. I want to make sure you guys know that, and so might as well get into it. As a child, I never really knew my father. All I had ever heard of him was he was a very bad man. That was the answer I got whenever I asked about my real dad. So I gave up on that question. He was a bad person, and I never knew him, so why seek him out? I accepted the fact that I would live with my mom and whoever she decided she wanted to be with for the next few years. It's how it was for a lot of my childhood. I never felt love from my father nor the stepfathers, and I didn't really get much love from my own mother either. What I got instead was emotional and mental manipulation, emotional and physical neglect, and just overall physical abuse. I was helpless. I couldn't do anything to get love, and that led to a feeling of extreme worthlessness and shame. In school, I found myself bullied and made fun of by the people I told myself I was close to. I had nothing but hatred and loneliness in my soul at this time. But that shifted near the end of 6th grade, though. At this point, my mother was still active in her abuse and neglectfulness. And without anyone in my family knowing, my mother was corresponding with my father, who was just freshly out of prison. And with very little warning, my mother broke up with my current stepfather, and we almost immediately moved from where we were living in Streetsboro to Ravenna, almost 30 minutes away from where I was located. The news was broken to us that sooner or later our father would be coming back to Ohio to live with us. To an 11-year-old who had separated himself from even the idea of a father, this shook me. I couldn't take it. I broke down in school, I broke down at home, I broke down anywhere I had a semblance of structure built. When you've lived your entire life without your father, and especially when the only things you hear about him are awful things, you can't help but be emotionally messed up by that. It was like a tree that had been living for decades and had a fire in its roots. Sure, the outside may have looked fine, but everything inside was burning. Eventually, I decided I needed to brush away the ashes, though. I couldn't really realistically keep this going, so once my father was living with us, I decided to let him in. If someone was banging on my door, it was easier to let them in than to shut my doors and try and keep them out. I felt really loved when I finally let him in, or at least at the time, what I thought was love. Instead of love, I put him on a pedestal. I ignored his problems and the issues he was bringing because my father was finally back after so long of being without him. Shortly after, though, about a year of him being back, I started to notice things going out of place, notice my parents acting differently, notice things missing from the household, and everything just started to feel kind of off. Specifically, I remember a day where I came home and there was vomit and other bodily fluids all throughout the house, and especially leading up to their room. I was horrified then and even more horrified now. They lied to us, of course. Oh, it was a stomach bug. Oh, we overdosed on caffeine. That last one is most likely closest to the truth. After a few months of this, we ended up being evicted. My dad crashed our van, and we were basically living off of drug money. Before being completely evicted, though, my mom and dad both got pulled over and caught with at least 10 pounds of drugs in their back of the SUV. Yet again, they had failed us. Somehow, they both had gotten back out, and me and my mom and my father ended up living in a family friend's house. Shortly after we moved in, my grandma on my dad's side ended up calling the police on my dad because he had a warrant out for his arrest. They surrounded the house, and I heard them before anyone else was even awake. As they came in, I watched my father kiss my little brother goodbye, and the police put him in handcuffs. I'll still remember this vividly to this day. The police officer asked if I wanted to give him one last hug, and I looked up at my father with tears in his eyes, but mine dry from shock. I gave him what would be our last hug for the next 5 years. A few weeks after this, Child Protective Services showed up. They asked both me and my mom a few questions and then decided I couldn't be living here anymore and I had to go live with my grandma. I thank those state employees to this day, though, because I would have been living with someone who I later learned had been convicted of multiple sexual crimes. Finally, it started to look like my life would be going down a better road. And sure enough, it was, but not all better roads are good roads. I ended up going to Jennings Middle School in North Hill, Akron at the start of that school year. It was 8th grade. I developed friends and the classes, and the teachers were all right, so it was nice, at least at school. Home was not some place I wanted to be. With my grandma now working in Wisconsin, my home turned into a living hell. However, it was a slow process. Again, things going missing, mom not acting like normal, countertops and dishes staying dirty and staying in the sink and not being cleaned, not knowing where my mom was, food lacking, basic necessities being a rarity in the household, constantly showing up to school in dirty clothes, and more time practically raising my little brother. Those are just some of the things that started showing, and after a while I could do nothing except stay up all night on the Xbox and sleep during the day to try and avoid my mother. Plus, I couldn't dare make a sound in the night. Putting ice cubes in my water bottle too late at night, I was screamed at. Walking upstairs to get over whatever semblance of food we had, I was screamed at. Anything I did was wrong. I could make no right move in her eyes. So I secluded myself. I escaped into video games, TV, pornography, and food. Adding on to this, there was always a random person in the house, multiple men that I had no clue who they were or where they came from. All I knew is that they were making what was already a living hell into something much worse. I had no roads out. I had no one in my mind I could contact. I had nothing. I actually did have one thing, though. I had resentment. I had resentment and anger to a degree I didn't think was possible. I was so beyond frustrated and done with myself, my parents, and these people that kept this going. And coming into my house and just ruining everything. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take the torment. I couldn't take life. I wanted so desperately to escape from life, and more importantly, I wanted to make these people suffer just as I had. So I decided the best route to this would be to take as many of their lives with mine as possible. All of these random men that had made bad into something indistinguishable from hell, I had decided they didn't deserve to live, and neither do I. But then one night, while laying in the basement, something kept ringing in my ears. A short phrase my dad had instilled in me over the 1 year he had still been in my life. Have patience, for good will come. To this day, I believe that was the Holy Spirit talking to me. And oddly enough, I listened to that voice. I didn't do anything rash or make a horrible, horrible mistake like I thought I would. I waited. A strange sense of calm had taken a hold in my mind. And as someone who had been in chaos and anxiety for so long, peace and calm are very different. Once I was in this state, I could think properly. I texted my grandma. She responded almost like she knew exactly what was going on. She quit her job in Wisconsin and moved back in with us. She saw what it was like to live with my mother and kicked her out of the house. There really is no way to describe what happens next other than divine intervention. My life immediately improved, school life got better, and one of my dad's old friends sent me a text out of the blue. I wasn't unfamiliar with him, for I had worked with him and 2 other guys the summer beforehand. I knew he was trustworthy, so I went back and forth between his house and mine on the weekends, and slowly developed a small friendship with him and his eldest son. I went to their church service a few times and one very specific further in. This is where my current life really, really started to fall into place. I met this really tall guy named Josh with one yellow Lakers jersey, and he probably insulted me a few times, but that was besides the point. Sorry. And all of the other wonderful people who were at the further end. They treated me like I was always there. I felt true love and kindness for probably the first time in a really, really long time. Obviously, I wanted more of this, so I kept hanging out at his place, and John would take me to further ends. Eventually, I like to think that this man got sick of me and being at his place all the time, and eventually just dropped me off at the Snischler's house. Barely any clue who they were, but I was there. I may have been scared out of my mind because there were about 11 or 12 people that I did not know. Yet, they all treated me as if I belonged there. Some kid that was basically brought off the streets, they treated like family. I still couldn't get a grasp on why these people were so generous and kind. It just didn't make sense to me. One of them, Luke Snischler, he went on to even build me a computer that through COVID, I got to connect with these people even further when it was extremely, extremely difficult to keep in contact with them. It was truly, truly a blessing to meet these people, and they continued to show that. And after a while of really no church and still not much of a connection with Christ, someone reached out. They asked if I wanted to go to church and that they would buy me lunch too. Of course, not thinking about the church part, I saw free food. I decided I wanted to go. So I answered yes. And now, after that small invite, I started to come to love these people I now call my family. People that used to be so foreign and I was sure would disregard me and push me to the side, now being my family. That is a change I would have never expected. This family and these friends showed me what I can only explain as the love of Jesus to me. They continued to sacrifice big and small over and over for me. I couldn't understand why, and I wanted to understand what made them different from the people that had been in my life up until now. And I didn't hesitate when I asked them. Again, over and over, they answered any question I had and continued to show me love over and over again. It changed me. It reformed my brain. It made me into who I am today. And that it is Jesus. This love they had, it wasn't from their own hearts. It was from him. Jesus, through people, had flipped my life upside down, and I decided I didn't want anything else. And that decision is what got me here on this stage. I got baptized right here on this stage. Since then, I've changed tremendously. Not only physically, but mentally, emotionally, and most importantly, spiritually. My anger and bitterness turned into passion and joy. My apprehensiveness towards people changed into an utter love for people and interaction. My emotional instability turned into a great fire for Christ and a great tool to connect with believers and unbelievers. And lastly, my shame and helplessness turned into confidence and faith. And I don't say any of this because it brings glory to me or because I gain anything from it. I say this because Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy and my burden is light."